Interesting.
Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Carrot Lab. This is the Thursday afternoon study show. I'm here with Mr. Akshay Patel in the booth. What's going on, my friend? How are you?
Yeah, I'm good. Looking forward to seeing what interesting things we're going to be talking about today. Since I saw the 2x pot in the title, I thought, oh my God, that sounds interesting.
Yeah.
What's going to happen?
So we're on a bit of a mission at the moment. Before I describe what that is, everyone should understand that this is an educational poker channel and stream, and it is not in any way meant to encourage online poker or any other form of gambling. We merely want to talk about the strategy of the game, and we're not affiliated with any poker site, licensed or otherwise. This is the beginning of a thing that I'm doing, and I'm going to be making a new course. I was a bit stuck on the direction of the company and what the next product was going to be for a while there, but I figured it out, and it's basically going to be, wait for it, ladies and gents, the carrot strategy. But the carrot strategy is going to be a unique toolkit of completely alien lines to your opponent that are not silly in theory. They're just not like main lines that people have studied, but they're really, really cool. For example, the 2x pot flop over bet strategy. So the idea is, guys,
Oh,
that
this is on the flop.
this is on the flop. So you
Okay.
familiarize yourself with this, what boards you can do it on. I think what we're going to be doing is either going really, really big or small, like really, really small. And there's going to be textures that we go really, really big on and textures we go very, very small on. And then our game trees are going to go from there. But you familiarize yourself with the game tree. You build a toolkit for the turn and river. You familiarize yourself with like how the theory works and how the game works once you contort it into that place. And then you begin to get familiar with what exploits will work because of what humans are naturally going to get wrong due to this. There won't be any MDA on this, guys. There won't be like what happens after you 2x pot flop and then bet turn. It won't exist in MDA, which means that the MDA guys can't even, they're like, oh, I don't have my thing on my checklist. And the other regs are like, oh no, it's scary. And you're just like, ha, 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 ha. Yeah? Yeah. So, actually, what are your first thoughts on the idea of a toolbox full of weird shit?
I'm a big fan of weird shit. Um, I am yet to agree that this weird shit is good or it will necessarily be misplayed against as much as other sizes, but I definitely like weird shit. But I guess I'm open to being convinced that this flop size is something that generates us EV, at least with some part of our range.
Or at least at
Uh,
some point in the game tree.
exactly.
Mhm.
So, like, it might be the case where this 2x pot idea is really good with a hand like pocket deuces, but really bad with some random air combo because they're meant to fold a 10 or something like that, right? I'm never quite sure,
Mm.
but I definitely think we should look into it and see what parts of range people are likely to misplay and then like adjust that based on
Yeah,
the
so
strategy that we want to play.
I have a few thoughts on that, and I'm going to push back a bit and say that like a few months ago that would have been exactly how I would have built this, or maybe a year ago. Having talked to Clanty a bit more, and having like thought a bit more, he kind of made a really good point that made me have one of those aha moments where he was like, it's not sufficient just to look at the reaction on the node that you're on to determine that like one choice of line is better than another, because you're gonna have like all the other parts of the game tree later and stuff like that as well. And there might be multiple lines that are all like, you know, we've seen this in MDA, right? That multiple lines lead to like achieving something on one street, and then there's still theory things that can matter as well. So I think it's like fairly unclear. Like even if we look at the response to 2x pot on, this is our flop strategy first of all, on 10 for deuce rainbow, and I checked the EV by the way, this is not like a problem to build this. It's got the same EV as a pot size bet strategy does, funnily enough,
Hmm.
when you rerun the sim. How good is node locking on GTO Wizard, by the way, and just like customizing the tree as you go. It's so fun. Um, Big Blind then has to react like this. And we could look at this and we could say, are they ever going to fold a 10? And the answer is kind of like, well, maybe, maybe not. Like, I'd imagine a 10 is overfolded here, just because like there'll be more than like 2% of people who fold a 10 here. You can see
True.
about like a tiny amount of 10x is folding. But the thing is, like on other boards, if we change the board slightly, how much top pair is meant to defend a 2x pot is going to change. And we're not in the interests of like being infinite computers that can just look at every board and know exactly where it's going to swing for every texture. So what I'm kind of thinking is, like, a priori, a 2x pot strategy is going to create a horrible world for them later. And it might serendipitously be one that they get right on a street or two, or it might not. But we're going to know what's going on, and we're going to gradually get more and more acquainted with it, and they're not going to know what's going on. And that for me is sort of enough to want to embark on it. And I'd almost rather that than just like, oh, look, there's more of an overfold to 1/3 here, so I'm going to like, yeah, okay, we could build like a proper MDA. I'll 1/3 my bluffs and 2x pot my big hands. Like, we could build that. That's not actually what I'm trying to build. I'm trying to build like a game plan that would also work against good players too.
Okay, so what I'm gonna say is, do we know what's going on? Like, we might know what's going on in theory, but like against a normal opponent, are we actually like, do we actually know what they're gonna do? Like, okay, some people fold a 10 on the turn on the flop, right? Which
Mm-hmm.
means their turn range is extremely strong. Do we really want to bluff this guy on the turn now that his range is extremely strong on the turn? Or are we saying even after the 2x pot bet on the flop, you're still gonna have to defend some of this like second pair, top pair region on the turn, you're going to fold that. Do you see what I'm saying?
I'm
I'm
just
saying
not
like
building an exploit with it. It's not the point of the course. It's more to like
the
learn how to play a strategy and then figure out
mm,
what's going on, and for that to be like an unseen strategy. Like, that's kind of the point of the course. And then get good at that.
okay.
And then we can figure out exploits as we go, but I'm certainly not trying to for
You're not
every
trying to exploit, basically. You're
not
trying to
really.
just
I'm trying
put
to
someone in the shitty spot
yeah, I'm
and
trying to
hope.
exploit
Well, not hope,
by
but yeah.
creating chaos and then like knowing the landscape better than them. It's a very like zoomed out, vague way of exploiting rather than like doing the whole this is exactly the MDA strat to this. Like, I'm not trying to build like the playbook here or anything like that that's based on
No, I
MDA.
don't. I don't think there's anything to do with MTA. I'm just wondering, like, do we understand what we're doing? Because, like, if you look at the flop strategy, it's you bet 33% of the time, right? For this size, something like that. You bet
Yeah,
a third of the time,
yeah.
right? So we also have to have a reasonable check back frequency with pocket aces, pocket tens even. You can see that. So are we even playing our strategy correctly, or will we just end up,
Well,
you
the
know,
answer is we're going to study it, right? Like, we're picking a
right? Yeah,
node
we're
at
going
the
to study
start
it.
and then we're going to study
Cool.
it. What we're not saying today is like,
Mm-hmm.
go and do this now. Like, that's not
Mm.
what we're saying. What we're saying
Mm-hmm.
is let's select a really cool arsenal
Idea.
of these
I
kinds
like
of
it.
plays, and then we'll go from there.
All right, let's start with that. I actually find it already interesting. The hands that we want to bet really big.
Lab, this is the Thursday
Oh,
afternoon. Sorry, I was just making sure the stream was working. Go ahead.
yeah, the hands we want to bet really big. We can actually have a look at that, right? I can't see the screen anymore.
There you go.
So it seems like we basically play extremely polarized, right? And the value region is essentially tens, jacks, queens, kings, and really good 10x. But we also like 2x pots and 4x and some deuce x as well, which is kind of interesting.
Yep.
I think that's really cool.
Yep.
It gives us the ability to have trips and have two pairs on various runouts, which is nice. And we obviously have the gut shots, and like the lower stuff will be like these jack highs and these queen highs that do a good job of blocking top pair, I assume, is what's getting bluffed there. So like the jack 8 suited has backdoor equity, but it also blocks 10 jack and 8-10 of spades or whatever. So yeah, it seems fairly intuitive to play. What I find unintuitive is actually that we need to check these 7-6s, these 8-7s, these 9-7s,
Mhm.
which ideally we would just like want to bluff, right?
Well, maybe, but we are
Well,
going to
in the
get
human
very
point of view.
good at playing the turn. So
Right.
basically, as we build a strategy that's more and more polarized, we should spend more time studying the check node. Like, if you play range bet
Mm.
on 10-4 deuce, you shouldn't spend any time facing probes or delayed c-betting 10-4 deuce on the turn. We've talked about this in our private study calls as well. But if you play 2x pot one day because you've bought the course The Carrot Strategy by Pete Clark, and you've watched the course The Carrot Strategy by Pete Clark, and you've taken notes on them. Okay, I'll stop. But you get the point. You're then going to be playing 2x pot, and then you're going to be playing a turn 2/3 of the time, and that's a juicy node, right? Like, playing a turn is a juicy node. There's other stuff we can do there. Delayed CBet landscape is rich with exploits. And then you should start studying the node where you check back first and foremost, because it's a really important one. And you should split that into A1 times they check again to you on the turn. Hint, bluff, if you're playing 25 NL. And A2 times that they probe. And then you can split A2 into various like sub-branches too. And then once you're good with that, you should also study turn barreling. Now, my turn barrel approach here that I've been researching this morning is pot on nut advantage preserving cards and B50 on any card where we want to start betting thinner for value, merging a little bit. Like the king is a B50 spot. The 7 is a B100 spot, right? So it depends on the turn. But I've been looking into that. And then you start to study those nodes. And then the idea is you then study the river after those eventually. And you're just building a part of the game tree that like you know well and intimately through your studies. So that's kind of where we're at with this.
No, I like it.
To go back to your point about the low cards here, another thing that's going on is that there's a kind of barren region that's folded pre that contains a lot of 3s and 4s and 6s and 5s, like 5x, 4x, 3x, 2x, right? That kind of stuff, especially in the offsuit variety. And that stuff is basically not important to unblock, but you do want to unblock the folding range that makes it to the flop and then folds to the big 2x pot bet. And if you look at their reaction and you ask, like, what are those folding combos? They're going to contain, in the offsuit variety, which is the abundant variety, a 9 and an 8, much more than they're going to contain any cards down here with the 3 of the deuce of the 4, right? So when you look at this, that's another reason why a hand like Queen 3 is basically a pure bluff. Like, in this sim, it actually has higher EV than checking, but it's not a fully like equilibrium accurate sim. And that explains why a hand like 8-7 never bets. It's actually an EV loss to bet. It's highly blocking of the got to the flop and then folding range, whereas the Queen 3 is only blocking the hand that's already folded pre and then isn't relevant.
Love it. See, these are the kind of nuances that are important, even though we might be playing against humans, but like these things do make a difference in the sense that like finding the correct bluffing region, because if you're going to play 2x pot and you just you could easily end up going to a situation where you're meant to bet 33 and maybe you can get away with betting 50, genuinely, probably you could, but you might not be able to get away with betting 75. Like when I say betting 75, like betting 3/4 of the time. And on these dry boards, it's very easy just to look at a hand like, I don't know, 7-5 backdoors and just be like, okay, I play 2x pot. I'm just going to 2x pot this
and that's why it's so important that we study this first and we learn these patterns and we actually start playing good poker. We can't just be like, I'm going to pick this size that you've never seen before and I'm going to make it up. Like, then you're both just making it up. Like, where's the edge?
You're both making it up, and then in the end, they'll accidentally exploit you because they will just have the region to call down more often because you have bad cards, right?
Well, you make that back when you're value betting, I guess, but if you were over bluffing, then yeah, sure. Graydon Tinney, high peak long term YouTube sub. I actually play very similar to the strategy on Club GG games. I love how small of a frequency you bet on the flop, so I can intuitively bet thick value big. Yeah. And the check back line with some marginal value allows me to bluff catch fairly easily because the fish give their hand away with their bet sizes. Yeah, like I was saying, like facing probes can be quite especially against fish, is a really rich exploitative node for sure. James Shaw, hello, Sam. With regards to studying flop checking the strategy in reality, when we're facing a turn stab, we're no longer in the B200 flop strat sim. We are in the sense that our range is the same as if we were B200ing flop, so we have the same range. You're right, though, in the sense that like the opponent doesn't know and they're not going to, like, whatever their turn lead strategy is, it will just be like a normal turn lead strategy. So that's kind of a good point. I wonder how different it is for villain to construct against the range that checks back here and the range that checks back if we were using a smaller c-bet. I would guess that the main difference here is that you have more total trash bad blocker stuff in your check back range and also more like top pair weak kicker and under pair in your check back range. Whether that makes a huge difference as to how they're meant to play, given that you still have roughly the same shape of check back range, I don't know. All check back ranges when you're not range betting are depolarized to some extent. They're always going in a depolar direction. And so the question is, like, if the direction remains the same, does it make a huge difference to villain? But that's something that would be well worth checking, and I think it's an excellent point.
I think that it doesn't make as much difference because we still have the relevant protection. Like we're still relatively protected in the check back node with a bunch of 10x, a bunch of aces even, a bunch of high cards like ace king, ace queen, bunch of pocket pairs, and even some middle pairs and second pairs like ace deuce, king deuce, queen deuce are still checking back. So not really afraid that someone. I'm not okay. I don't think Sam's making this point at all, but I don't think that them not knowing. I think if we sim locked it so that we ignore the first node, it wouldn't make that much enough of a difference to
Yeah.
care.
Yeah, I'm not too bothered about that either.
Because
And
we come to the turn with an intact node, right? With just these hands taken out. And we just play that range.
yes, and
So
I guess I'm saying like that will affect how they're meant to probe and what they're meant to do, and it will affect the rest of the game tree we're studying. The question is like how much and how different is it to like something.
yeah. I guess that's the same with like every single node that we have splits.
True.
So like any node there's a split. Even if you pick a B50 split node on the flop, like we'll always get to the turn slightly differently to equilibrium, and everyone will have a different interpretation of what you should have done on the flop.
Right.
So everyone will have a different strategy in that situation. It's just about who can play the best street poker at that point, I guess.
Yep.
In some kind of way.
If you're liking these new streams, guys, hit the little love heart button on your screen.
I mean,
give us some love so we can get some publicity from the algorithm and get this stream out to more people to see what we're doing here.
I think one interesting question to ask is how would we simplify our strategy? Not to the point of simplifying to range betting. I'm saying simplifying to categorizing our hands
Right.
in buckets so that we can play our strategy the most effectively.
Right. Okay.
Because it's kind of hard for me to envision a situation where I have to remember to mix even 50% of aces and 25% of tens.
Okay.
It'd be simpler just to say I'm going to always check aces, always check tens, and I'm always going to bet.
Yeah.
Queen
See,
10, for
I
example.
don't really feel the need to simplify it to that point. In fact, to me, that's more specific and it's more to remember than having the category of pure mix and check. So there's three ways you can do this. You can do what you're doing. I don't like that personally. Alternatively, you can go 100, 50, and 0. Alternatively, you can go high frequency, mid frequency, low frequency, 100 and 0. I wouldn't go like, Clanty circa 2021. I'm going to bet up to 17 here. Like, that's a bit much for me, bit much. That's
No, I mean, people have different ways of mixing. The whole idea is just categorization, right?
Exactly.
Like there's a category of nutted hands. There's a category of medium showdown value hands. But there's also like in this situation, there's weird categories like that don't quite fit. So like second pair and second pair and middle pair.
Yeah.
Sorry, that's third pair. Third pair and middle pair, which don't really fit into like nutted category, but they're still betting.
They're hybrids, right?
frequency.
So
hybrids,
the way I would
yeah.
categorize this is I would start with nutted and nutted pure bets when you're using this strategy, right? So when you have like pocket fours, there are exceptions, right? Like tens, which we'll come to in a second, but fours and deuces are going to pure bet this spot. Then you have like, I mean, you could count this in nutted, but like vulnerable
On the flop,
overpair.
we'll consider these to be nutted.
Yeah, like kings,
So
queens, jacks are vulnerable overpair.
on the flop, these are nutted.
Yeah.
So at the point we decide to export, these are nutted.
These are nutted, yep. So nutted,
Yeah.
nutted, nutted, nutted. Now, then you have like nutted caveat, like you're going to have some caveat hands that are like heavily blocking of the calling range. So as you drive up your size into 2x pot, a bigger and bigger chunk of your opponent's calling range is 10x, and therefore having two tens in your hand has more of a destructive effect on how often you get called than it does if you're B1 1/3ing, and then people are calling like loads of stuff that isn't a 10, right? So the 10 blocker is much more relevant here. Aces has always been a hand that we can kind of slow play on the flop, even when we're playing smaller sizes, because it's blocking of ace high calls. Like some of villain's calling range will still be ace 5, ace 3, ace backdoor here, and also because it's invulnerable and we want the opponent to hit second pair that they would fold to flop c-bet when we have two aces, because we'll dominate that hand even after it hits. So these are the kinds of things the Carrot Poker School will teach you. And once you've done CPS, I would say that like the Carrot strategy, when it comes out, if that's going to be what it's called, will be something that we recommend people do after they have a theoretical understanding to some extent. right? Rather than just like start with it and copy it and not know how the theory of the game works. So that helps with categorization. Then you have like the checking range, which is a huge amount of combos. It's going to range from like king, queen here on the lower end of the showdown value in king, jack, and king 9 and king 8, all the way up to all of your pocket pairs. If there was a high second pair, like if it was queen 10-4, like a lot of the 10x would also fit into that, because you only have low second pairs here that are very vulnerable and very like nutty in their outs. The thing about the lower cards is that their outs are nuttier for the same reason I mentioned earlier, that like the big blind gets rid of like hands containing those cards pre-flop, so the outs that you can actually hit there tend to make you nutty stuff, right? Like if the board is queen jack 4 and you hit a 10 and it makes you 2-pair, that 10's kind of like a crappy out. But on 10-4 deuce, when you hit a deuce or a 4 with, you know, 1 pair, you make a very big hand that's extremely hard for villain to beat, especially when they've not raised the flop. So it's a matter of identifying that when you get these low cards on the board, they lend themselves towards betting in lots of different ways. One, villain has to fold an overpair to that card, like 6s or something at a frequency, if you go 2x pot. 2, you can improve the really nutty stuff with high implieds. 3, you get denial by doing that. And 4, you unblock the folding range. There's just lots of reasons to want to bet these low down second pairs. And that's why the term second pair is almost like the term straight. Like if a student said to you, Akshar, should I bet with a straight on the river? What would you say to them?
What's the board? What's the
Right.
context?
So what second pair? Is it a high stable card or is it a low card? That's really important when we're categorizing. Where'd we get to? Second pair. Below that, you have like this lower showdown value region that we talked about. There's a thing in CPS called the betting island, where you have like the checks that are above it. That's the upper median, right? Like 9s, 8s, 7s, 6s. This is upper median. Betting island is the hybrid hands, 4x, deuce x. Then the lower median is the checking hands below that that are more stable, that want to see a turn, that want villain to hit so we can dominate them. Ace king, ace queen, ace jack, king queen, king jack, etc. Then you have the various bluffing range that's going to start at like king 7 and work its way down. And it's going to be fine to bet with lots of these cards with an overcard to the board. And as long as you don't have like 2 horrible medium air-like cards. So as you get down to like 7-6, it's not just that you have like the kind of blocker to the folding range a bit more, but you're also just like hopeless in terms of equity. And the bigger you go, remember, the more prosperity and implied odds your hand needs to be able to harvest. Like as you're putting in 2x the pot, it's a bit different.
That bad as well. So even if you do make the mistake, it's not the
Right.
end of the world. I think
Right.
that's one thing to remember, is that we're still playing against humans, and if I do end up betting 8-7 of hearts here, or 8-7 of hearts is probably not too bad because it has some more backdoor straight draws, I guess. But I'm not gonna be too upset about it. It's more about like the general idea is that we play this extremely polarized range, and these are the good cards to bluff because they do various things, and these are the cards that we don't want to bluff so much because they do various things.
Yeah.
And that's it.
Yeah. An interesting one is like Jack 9 as well. It feels like the 9 is just extremely unfavored. It's like the utmost blocker to the folding range. Like the offsuit 9 is the most abundant like folding hand, right?
Well, yeah, that makes a lot of sense because the queen 9 off, the king 9 off is maybe even the jack 9 off is combined what, like 48 combos or something. Or no, not the offsuit, so it's like 36 or something combos. So a lot of basically the 9 doesn't seem like a very nice card to bluff here.
Yeah, and that's often the case
interesting.
in GTO. Like the 9 and the 8 and the 10 are danglers. They interact with the stuff that could have hit and would have hit often, but hasn't on this occasion, and that's what makes them like less good to bluff. Okay, chat. Flop over bet is the new meta. It's kind of going that way, so let's just make it an even bigger one, and we'll be off meta. I always like to be off meta. It's a higher AV strat potentially when we B200 flop. After that, we likely switch strat. Yeah, I mean, I don't want to get too lost in this rabbit hole. I think if we're understanding the broad strokes of what we're doing on the turn after we're called here, and just a general approach of what we're doing on the turn against like the delayed CBet, on delayed CBet and facing probe nodes, then yeah, like I can agree with you, and I don't know if it matters that much. Hello guys, spoiling us for these live streams. Yeah, we're trying to build the community, and we're trying to get the Discord really thriving again. Actually, you're running as a sensei in the Carrot Discord, you are running weekly. Is it weekly Thursday evening, like sensei study calls?
Yeah, 3 p.m. hand reviews. And usually I pick two people to submit the hands and we do the hands in real time.
I thought
So
it
that's
said
kind of
like
what we're
8
doing.
p.m. or something on the events tab in the Discord. Okay.
Oh God, it should be 3 p.m. UK time.
I'm sure it said evening.
Oh God. To me it says today 3 p.m.
Maybe I'm making it up. Anyway,
Okay.
I'm probably
Oh,
making it up. So that's available if you are a Discord member. How do you become a Discord member? Well, you need to get a Carrot Poker School course or the Golden Carrot. That's now the way we have regated the community. We found that it was amazing back in the day when it was quite small and tight knit. It's not that we want to make it tiny. We've left everyone in who came in from subscriptions or getting cash injection or something, but we are going to be offering a ton of really good free stuff, and it's going to be an incentivizer for you to get Carrot Poker School enrolled as well. So yeah, Discord is going to contain loads of new stuff. We already have senseis running like hangouts in the voice channels, streaming their sessions. We have members streaming their sessions, but we're going to have like monthly challenges, perks, special roles like Carrot Night that you can obtain, perks, discount codes that go with these roles once you serve the community by being active for long enough. And of course, the hand channels are like the nuts and bolts of the Discord, where you can post a hand for review at any time. Graydon says the buckets are thick value that can improve bets big, thick value draws. Yeah, sure. No, thick value
can I?
is yeah, go ahead.
I was going to say, I actually want to discuss the defense quickly
Mhm.
because I think it's actually important to see because I know you don't want to talk too much about the exploits, which I think is fine, but I do agree that like is that their flop defense? Just
Yep,
to make sure, is that the
yep.
next node? No, that's
That's
their
their
flop
flop
defense.
defense.
Yeah, so it seems that they need to defend basically backdoor 4x and deuce x, and they need to defend some king high, like ace high, king high with backdoors,
Yep.
and essentially like raise a gutter. Jesus, ace five off is like ace four off.
They actually raise quite a bit more than like I
Yeah,
was expecting.
yeah. Okay. So that's what I find interesting
Mm.
is that I do think that we're probably getting more than 75% fold in this node.
Yeah, I agree.
Just if I saw this, if I saw a guy 2x pot the flop here
Mhm.
from a human point of view, and I've never seen this guy before, or even if I have seen this guy before, and I was sitting here with King Deuce, I'd be like, fuck this, I'm folding.
You still want to deal with it, right? And that's the idea
I
of the
don't want to deal with
sideline.
it.
That's the
I
idea
don't
of the
want to deal
carrot
with it.
strategy. It's kind of like we're getting to a saturated point where at 200 Zoom or 500 reg tables, let's say, or even like in 100 NL tougher pools, like people are getting quite good at not having massive leaks, but they're also using MDA. And that's kind of like you can enter the war of MDA if you want, and that's going to have its own meta. I would predict over the next 2 years, we're going to see a lot of meta shifts. It's going to be like 2008 kind of style where one week the pool's doing this, and then the next month it's flipped, and there's like these meta wars going on. And what I'm kind of doing with the carrot strategy is I'm saying if we join us, we are going to give you a game plan that takes every MDA reg out of book and every GTO reg out of book at the same time. That's pretty good.
I'll also say that um, they have to be curious enough to actually like go into a sim and look up what they're meant to do against this size, right? It's kind of hard. And yeah, I think taking people out of book is very good
Yeah, and
in general, which is
it's not worth it for them to go and study this. Like if someone plays the Grob opening against you in chess, it
no,
doesn't make it right to go away and start obsessively
it
studying the
doesn't.
Grob opening.
No. All right, I gotta go, but you guys have fun for the rest of the
Awesome, man.
day.
Thanks for joining. Take it
Um,
easy.
see you next time. Bye, guys.
See ya. All right, who's next? I think Sam's coming on at 2. Did he say? Who wants to come on for half an hour? Anyone in the Discord? Anyone in the chat? Just jump in. Do you know what? I'll just post the I'll post the link in the chat as well, in case you want to hop on a call with me. But we'll continue looking at this in the meantime. So yeah, this is quite interesting, really. Maybe one thing we do now is we go to turn. So the way I'm building the turn here is that there are realistically two types of hand. Big blind is meant to defend hands as bad as king 3 offsuit. It depends on the sim you're looking at, right? Like that depends on the rake structure and all of that sort of stuff. Oh, we have a guest. Let's welcome this guest onto the show before we go any further. So this is actually one of my students joining us here. This is Brian. Brian's been a bit of a hiatus. He was an old school reg back in the day, ground a ton of volume, has come back to the game recently and is trying to sort of like, I guess, transition Brian from like MDA reg into someone that understands the game better and is playing like good strategies for the modern climate. Have I summed that up about right?
Yeah, that's pretty accurate.
Cool.
Yep.
So what do you think about this idea of like
So I,
2x pot flop?
so I just joined right now, so I have to kind of get the action.
Okay.
So what happened here?
We're single raise pot and we're discussing remember we talked in our coaching session yesterday about like you were building like a kind of pot size strategy. We were looking into the implications of that. I'm going to be I think I'm going to be the 2x pot guy on a lot of the boards where we're allowed to size up. And so we were studying this, actually, and I were talking about implementation of this, big blind's reaction, and then we're going to look at turn, and I'm going to flesh out the sort of toolkit here. It's all gearing up for like a course I'm thinking of building in the near future, basically.
So are you betting 2x on the flop?
Yeah.
Okay. Wow. Okay.
We're off meta.
Yeah, I wouldn't know where to start. Okay. So what are we deciding? Like, what are we doing on the turn or?
So on the turn, we're either going to be using B50 on any card that changes the nuts. I think that's a good way to put it. We're going to be using B50 because it's super weird to go from facing to B200 to facing B50, and I think it's just going to put like a lot of cats amongst a lot of pigeons. And on any card that retains what the nuts were, where we preserve that advantage, we're going to go ahead and pot it. We don't need, this is at 100 big blind steep, at 200 we 2x pot again, right? Or something like that. But we're going to go B100 on the turn cards that retain nuts. So here, I've actually locked half pot for the King of Clubs turn because it changes the nuts and we still want to bet jacks and a bunch of the 10x that we bet on flop. I think half pot's a nice sizing here. It's going to set a pretty difficult challenge for the big blind, which is going to be to do 14% raise now, like very hard, and also like an incredibly like ridiculous situation where like 10x is now, there's just a lot of indifference I think here. So B50 or B100 depending on that factor basically.
Okay. Yeah, I mean it's definitely interesting. I find with the 2x on the flop, you probably can't be betting like pot or bigger with the same kind of range as if you were like B75 or something on the flop, right?
You talk about turn?
Yeah. Yes, you probably have to change the turn strategy a bit with, over betting on the flop.
Yeah. So it depends very much on the card. One thing I would say is that when you have B200 at the flop, cards can be more stark in the effect they have on ranges. So like this isn't a two-tone board obviously, but if it was a two-tone board and you B200 at the flop and a flush got there, you kind of have to be expecting leads now from a good opponent and checking back a ton if you're not facing leads, because a flush draw is an incredibly large part of a range that calls a B200 on the flop.
Right.
There are less other hands that can call a B200 on the flop. And these are the kind of nuances that take people out of books, so to speak, that make people like if you look at a flush draw turn, or let's take a turn that really, really hits villain, right? Like what does villain gravitate towards on this flop? He really moves towards a 10. And we don't move towards a 10 that much because our value region's mostly overpair and set and stuff like that. So if we make the turn a 10, I don't know how much leading there'll be, but it'll definitely be a lot more than if we'd bet the flop small. You can see it's like 7.8%. No, it's range lead. It's range lead. Wow. So this is the kind of shit I'm talking about, guys. We need to terminate the stream. We just can't be giving people this stuff for free. This is getting too valuable now.
Yeah. I actually had some hands based on our session that I wanted to post. I'm still waiting to post, but yeah, there was some interesting spots.
Yeah, for sure. And I'm enjoying the work we're doing at the moment because you're at a fresh point where you're building a toolkit and you're just back to the game. and I'm at a fresh point
Yeah.
where I'm gearing up for a new course, so definitely a lot of fun. Um, yeah, so I think this is wild. Look at the range graph, guys. Brian, look at that range graph.
That, yeah, it's crazy.
Isn't it obscene?
Yeah. I actually found a similar spot that I'll probably be posting soon where the out of position is leading range and it's yeah, unusual.
Yeah. So you're like weaving absolute chaos here with this flop strategy to the point that when the turn is a 10, they check range in a spot they should be betting range. I mean,
Yeah.
then what we do is we say, well, what if they're going to do that? Like, what if I'm not against a really good reg, and even a good reg might check range because they're four tabling or something? What if I get rid of that, right? What happens to their EV? So their EV is 15.27 with the donking strategy. And if I take away their bet option, their EV goes down to 14. What did I say? 15? Did I say 16.27 or 15? God, I'm so bad at remembering. Anyway, it went down considerably, right? It went down to 14 point something. So they lost like a good chunk of a big blind there by checking everything compared with betting everything.
Yeah.
And now we're probably meant to range check back. So there's certain turn cards where we just get to go, haha, you missed an entire street of investment in a spot where you were killing me. Too bad.
Yeah, there's gonna be a lot of spots like that, right? Because they've never experienced it. So
Yep.
yeah.
Yep. So I think this should be in the carrot strategy. We should definitely play around with these huge flop bets on these boards. Now, you're a sort of former pro. I'm
Mhm.
obviously an old man coach. There's a lot of people that might be really new to the game watching the stream that might be playing like 2NL. So,
Yep.
for their benefit, what are some boards, Brian, that we would not want to do this on? Let's pick some flops that would be like out of bounds for the 2x pot strategy.
I'd definitely start with like a connected, maybe like low connected board.
Mm-hmm.
Probably not good.
A board on which villain catches up in nut advantage. What size should they lead, Sam? I didn't actually see. Sorry, I've gone to a new sim now, so you'll have to rewind the stream and see. Sometimes you have to put some work in to get what you want out of life, Sam. So here they actually meant to play donk bets, and if they do range check, and this is another case where honestly, like I would, can I no block this one? I'm gonna make them range check. You can do this either by removing the bet or just dragging up the check frequency. It doesn't matter. I wonder if we do much betting now. Probably, or we do some. And we go small. So EV is at 2.17. What happens to
Mhm.
our EV if we force it to play the strategy we were using on that nut advantage board on a non-nut advantage board? Goes down a bit. So if you do it here, it's not that it's a mistake if you did it with the right range, but it almost becomes obsolete because it's akin to range checking. So maybe the best way to answer that question is to say, if you try to use a huge investment on a board where you have a low betting volume, like here, the solver will just stop you from ever betting to make sure you stay under your betting volume. So you kind of have to use B200 on boards where you have a relatively high betting volume in order for it to ever actually occur. Like a line that occurs
Mhm.
9% of the time, that's not really a strategy. That's more just like range checking.
Right. Actually, I'm just thinking like, what about on boards that are customary like range bets for like B33 or B25? Like maybe like I don't know, King Deuce Deuce Rainbow.
Mm.
Like how weird would that be?
I think on King Deuce Deuce, it would be a bit weird, but I think on like King 7-7, it would be a lot weirder. It'd be a lot worse, like when villain has like more of the relevant trips combos. Um,
Hmm.
so yeah, this one it's only bad because like it just is basically never betting. If we load up, I'm intrigued by King Deuce Deuce actually. I'd imagine it's probably some kind of EV loss, but not a huge one. So the default strat, the button of the small bet has an EV of 2.47. And then if we drag this up the 2x pot, 2.47 becomes higher. What?
Oh, interesting.
Yeah, sometimes I just really like don't trust these numbers because like I don't know how accurately this is solved to, because you can see here the EV differences and stuff. It's not the most. This is my only like problem with GTO Wizard, is that you can't get like the really high accuracy sims you can get from Pio.
Hmm.
But it doesn't seem like it's. I don't know. Maybe I'm missing something here. Maybe it's something I don't
I mean, to
understand about
me,
the algorithm.
it does seem plausible. I mean, most of the bets are 2x. So, I mean, if you're
Mm.
getting defended by any king X, you're pretty much crushing them, right?
Yeah,
So,
yeah. Yeah, so I mean, it's. I think what we're really looking for is like boards where we get to do this. Like we want to do this on boards where we have a
with a
high
high
enough with a
frequency,
high enough frequency for it to be a relevant part of our win rate or relevant thing we
yeah,
encounter. Because I don't want to study something I get to do 10% of the time. I want to study
yeah,
that.
yeah.
So the other side of the coin then is like the tiny bet. What I'd recommend then you do if you're not going to use a really big bet and you want to keep it like very weird is min bet. Something
Hmm.
like 22%, let's say. And now you will just get to do it with like a high frequency. Still like not range or not close to
So
range.
as a like let's say a MDA minded player,
Mm.
whenever I see the min bet on this, like I probably have like I don't know, 50% check rates
Yeah,
or higher. I don't know.
yeah,
And it's like wildly successful. So I
absolutely.
don't know. I wouldn't really want to do it against my player type. So
Or you could just learn how to like over
or
defend.
yeah,
So
do it effectively. Yeah.
yeah,
You can do it
so
effectively.
first off, like what we should decide for what we're building together. I mean
Hmm.
like as a community in like this course, I'm gonna make more so than like what we were doing in your game, Brian. But like, what are we gonna bet range for this, or are we going to learn to split for this? That's like something we need to try to decide. And honestly, I don't mind betting range in a spot like this at all. But what it means is that we kind of need to learn what play should look like thereafter. I think like the biggest problem with people range betting when they start moving up and running into strong players is that they don't know how to defend the range bet, right? And that's where you can eventually get into trouble. You get away with it for a very long time that it lulls you into
Yeah.
a comfort zone, and then when you suddenly start playing higher, it's very common for me to see the MDA reg kind of crush at 50 NL and 100 NL, then suddenly hit a brick wall when they get to higher pools.
Yeah. It's kind of my issue coming back.
Mm-hmm. Because what we're doing against this is raising really small in this strategy. Now, I'm
Hmm.
not going to plug that in here. I'm going to plug in like something that people do a bit more, like a kind of like this. If you face this like R60, you want to familiarize yourself with the defense. And the defense is that you don't just get to fold ace jack off, especially with the club.
Right.
Um, or with no diamond, unblocking some of the bluff raises, you actually like don't get to fold that. And that's why what you're describing is so effective, because you're running into a guy that's learned to range bet and doesn't know how to defend it, and then you're going small with your flop raise, presumably because it's a fairly
Hmm.
inelastic spot, and then they're folding ace queen pure when they should be calling it pure, and you're just mopping EV.
Yeah. I mean, I obviously I didn't like check the fold percentage, but I gotta be getting like 50% folds and I'm 3.5xing their min bet. So
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. Yeah, it's going really well,
Yep,
that part.
yep.
So
So you kind of need to be
it
able to
would be
min
good
bet and
to
defend.
know in his position. Yeah, exactly. How to defend would be a good thing to know if you're doing that strategy. I don't
Exactly.
think they took it that far.
Yeah, they're just like, this is a simplification, done. And it's
Yeah.
like, it always goes back to that whole, am I trying to beat the stake I'm at as quickly as possible to get to the next stake? Or am I trying to build an understanding of the game that will maximize my progress over like 5 years or 10 years or 20 years? Because those two things are actually at odds, I think, in poker, whereby when you join a CFP that just tells you what to do to beat a very specific pool, you can do that. Sam will disagree with me here. Like he knows some people that do that do very well and make a good living, and he might say that's the way forward. But I would say like if your goal is to become a really seasoned poker player, you do have to do both. And I know a lot of guys that do MD8 do both, and they do understand the game on a deep level. I'm not saying they're all just like, you know, gorillas that mash the same button over and over again, but many of them are, and those are the ones that get stuck. So it's kind of like, do you want to get the quickest cheat code out of the level, like kind of like in Mario when you went in that weird warp zone and like skipped a bunch of bits of the game? Always felt dirty to me to do that. Or do you want to like really put in the effort and then build a game that's going to be like, carry you to high stakes 8 years from now? It depends what your goals are, really, doesn't it?
Yeah, and I mean, maybe like for me, a kind of unique situation is like I'm not like relying on poker winnings for life, so I'm just kind of trying to get good. So yeah, I you go into a session where I'm just like, okay, I want to try this concept. I'm not trying to necessarily win or lose.
Yeah,
So
yeah, yeah. So what do you guys think about these ideas then? Like, how interested would you guys be in purchasing a course that was like giving you all of these unique plays and lines and studies to do so that you could master them and then sort of wield them as your default for the next 10 years? Like a course that would set you up to have these weird lines in your strategy for the next decade and you became like that character. We were talking yesterday, Brian, about I think I'd heard a lot about the remaster of the Elder Scrolls Oblivion, and that's why I was using the character building RPG analogy in our coaching session. But like
mhm.
when you're studying poker at the start of your career, you're building a character that is you, the poker player, and you can build that to be someone who range bets flop, or you can build that to be someone that uses big bets and splits. You can, build that to be someone that does a lot of probing on river for a tiny size, or someone that just starts probing at half pot. You can build it in all sorts of different ways, and it's like choose now and then spec those lines rather than like try and do everything and flit about the place for 10 years. Like really try and like master some parts of the game.
Yeah, I've been having like a lot of fun since the session, just thinking about how I'm going to kind of build this out, right? Like if I'm going to have a strategy that's basically a deep forest strategy, it's just all sidelines. I think it's just gonna, cause fits for my opponents. So kind of like it.
Yeah, you're just a guy that they just don't want to be involved with in a hand. Like that's always
Yeah.
been the place to be as a poker player. Like if you think about going back in the day, like Brunson, right? Let's talk about Texas Dolly here. He would raise a flush draw on the flop against a c-bet, and that was wildly aggressive. Like, oh my god, Doyle raises draws. They've not even got there yet. They're not even a flush yet, and he raises those hands. And his opponents would say, in his words, "You take it, Doyle. I don't want it," because they knew I might have the hand and they knew I might have the draw, and they couldn't tell. And this was revolutionary for like the 1980s. And it's
Yeah.
like we want to be the guy that's like towering over the table, so to speak, that our opponents want to stay away from. We want to be the Doyle of the 1990s. We want to be the, I don't know who it would have been in the 2000s coming up. Like maybe like Tom Dwan when he first
Tom
came on the
Dwan,
scene.
yeah.
Uh-huh. Like no one
Yeah.
wanted to mess with him. Yeah.
Yeah, actually, so I play on the Canadian GG, so it's kind of like a nosebleed pool because there's only like, 20 people. And I have let's say like a 20% check raise and I do a lot of like versus delay bet, I do a lot of check raising. And I notice guys are checking back a lot of hands that they should bet on the flop, and then a lot of spots where they should delay C bet, they're
Yeah.
checking. Like they're
Yeah.
just like, I don't want to, I just don't want to get in this situation. So
Yeah.
you can definitely start spotting like people start trying to avoid you. So
Yeah, and that's the advantage of when you don't need to grind for the money and they do. They kind of have to think about practicalities. They only have limited space for, shall we say, curiosity for the sake of curiosity. Whereas you have bandwidth to be like, I'll just look into that for a day because like I can. And that's a huge edge as well. Whereas when you're like
yeah,
floor tabling to make bread, like it's hard to care about like that guy that's 2x potting the flop. Just ignore him because he's
yeah,
a smart
because
part of
it
the
like
book.
it's interesting. Like let's say like since we started the training, like sure I can play 30, 40 hours a week, but like I can play 5 hours a week and study 30. It doesn't make a difference to me. So yeah, I'll play like 3,000 hands for the week because all I'm doing is working on stuff and trying stuff. And
Hmm.
yeah, it's been a lot of fun because I'm like, it's not gonna make a difference to me if I make whatever money this month anyway. I'm not gonna take it out,
Right.
probably this year. So
Yep.
yeah.
And it doesn't work like that in the real world either, right? Where like the thing poker players get really wrong is that this expectation that they'll start and they'll just be winning like automatically. Because even if you're playing low stakes, like it's a very hostile climate to win pre-rake back in anyway. Not that many people achieve it. And those who do don't win at a big clip apart from like the rare people who are like really crushing. And when you start off and you're using like 25 or 50 NL as a training ground, and you don't have like an education under your belt, you shouldn't expect to win. Like just in the same way that when you start out in like medical school, you wouldn't expect to get hired by a top hospital as like a resident or something like that, right? Like it just wouldn't be, it would be very weird. But in poker, people have this entitlement and they're like, well, I'm not winning after 38,000 hands. And they're not playing enough for a start. They're not studying enough. And they're like, I'm not winning. Therefore, like everything's wrong and it's bad and I can't do it. It's just such a. I think it's caused by the fact that it's a game that throws losing in your face and it puts a dollar amount on what you're losing. And it really just like deludes people into thinking that they should be winning automatically or something. So you do just want to have periods in your poker career where you just study a lot. And then you want to have other periods where you, like, as my friend Chris says, you jump in the fire and you expose yourself to what like 150k hands across 2 months feels like, and you grow from it and you
Mhm.
become match sharp because of it. Um, do as I say, not as I do here. I haven't done that for a very long time, but that's a
Yeah.
very important part of becoming the poker player, the full rounded poker player as well. It's okay to have those phases.
Yeah, and I mean, I've definitely, been the person who played 100,000 hands a month, for a long time. And so it's absolutely fine playing, 20,000 hands. And like other people who would play 20,000 hands, maybe they're only devoting 20,000 hands worth of poker that month. But like I'm putting in the same amount of time as the 100,000 hands. I'm just doing it off the table. So
Yeah.
yeah, I'm looking forward to the long-term success.
Yep. Chaco, there's no rake in League of Legends apart from the cosmetic bait that they put out there. Like if you want that like fairy Ari, then maybe you have to invest money, but there's no carrot poker school and there's no rake, so it's a lot cheaper. Um I'd also say like if you're losing at 7 BB per 100 at GG 25 Russian cash, you're better than the average player in that game considerably. So that's kind of scary, right? Just like, think about that for a second, guys. So people are like, oh, break even over 62,000 hands. It's like, well, one, it's not a big sample, but two, you're like 10 BB per 100 better than the average player in that game. It's just not enough to win because of what the poker world's done, or not enough to win pre rake back in BBJs.
That's actually another realization, like with people posting about sample sizes. Like, I've played like, I don't know, 5, 6 million hands, and like I can have 100,000 hand sample where I'm like 12 BB.
Yep.
I can have another one where I'm -3. Like it's
Yep.
the same player.
Yep.
So there's so much variance. So you can't really make so much judgments on like, oh, 20,000 hands, I'm winning. It's like, okay.
Yeah, and people don't like that. People don't want that to be true because they want to feel like they're doing something tangible when they play 80,000 hands in a year. They've got a full-time job that's 60 hours a week. They've got a wife and kids and a whole family, and they can't play any more poker than that. And
Yeah.
they want to feel like they're doing something tangible, but they're actually not. And it's like you can still be like obsessed about the game and get better, but I'm afraid if you're only going to play 100,000 hands a year, you're never really, it's going to take you a very long time. You're never going to know your win rate because your game will evolve by the time you've played enough hands to even like see a number that would be accurate if it was the same player. It won't be the same player 8 years from now, so you won't know your win rate. So
Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah, I was thinking the other day, like I don't even know what a win rate is. Is it real? Can you have a win rate? Because as time goes on, your game changes, the pool changes. So is a win rate
it's
even
it's
real?
always changing. Yeah, the even in a static situation with high variance and equal skill edge, there was the famous six solver experiment, right? Where the six solvers battled over like many millions of hands, and at the end, one was like -6 BB per 100 over like millions of hands, and another one was like +2. But like at some point
Mm.
earlier in the challenge, the one that finished at like -6 PB, like Sun ran the first like 500k hands or something like that. That solver made
Okay.
like a coaching site and started hiring instructors and stuff like that, you know, and the other one didn't because he thought he was no good at the game. So it's kind of funny.
Mm.
Um, but yeah, I mean, it's not that like no
Actually,
sample's relevant, right? We're not saying that you can't know anything, but you can't pin down a number. Yeah.
I think, yeah, there'll be specific things. Like, for example, like what we're going through, like in our coaching, I'm gonna be looking at, for example, like my red line. Like I've always been like a super low red line player, even while winning. So it's like if I get a break even red line for 100,000 hands, that's at least like very big indicator that my game changed,
Yep.
right? So
Yep.
and actually, I was thinking like Doyle Brunson, who's, one of the legends. He's probably only played like 40,000 hands lifetime if he's only playing live.
If that.
So is
Yeah.
he even a is he even a winning player? I don't know.
It's not to speak ill of the dead, but yeah, I mean, Doyle never really had a prime dope, a graph that could stand up to a prime dope comparison. So yeah.
Yeah.
Fat King Louis says, how dangerous is it for a mediocre player to start implementing stuff like this when on the other side basic errors or erroneous thought processes drive their actions? I would firstly respond to that by saying that even for the strategies that you're quote unquote familiar with, you're probably still making loads of basic errors. I would also respond to that by saying there's nothing inherently harder about studying 2x pot and then turn play than there is about studying a small bet and then turn play. You're just used to the latter. And it's what I've been saying to people recently is like the game you want to play in 5 years' time is probably the one you should be like beginning to research now. So you shouldn't play a strategy you've never looked at for sure. And I'm not saying you should go away tomorrow and start 2x potting the flop, but pick a direction and then stick to it. And that's what this course would kind of do. It'd be like trying to give people a direction that was thematic to the brand and the one that we've decided is going to be good, not just now, but 3 years from now, whatever the meta is, this is still going to be off meta and somewhat rare because we're not a big enough poker institution to sort of control the meta, I wouldn't think, right? So you should be safe. Even if you run into a few other people that do it, you should still be in like the kind of minority, right? Sam's gonna join us here.
Yeah. Well, one thing that I heard is like if you're doing the same strategy that everybody's doing and this other strategy is similar EV, well, your opponents know how to play against what everybody else does. They don't know how to play against the thing that hardly anybody does. So even though it might say it's the same EV, you might actually create a huge, EV advantage by doing something that they're just not used to seeing.
And 6 years from now, we might be in a scenario where there are just way more different strategies flying about. The meta, I kind of feel like the meta has to go in this direction now. It's like almost the only angle that's left for it. And we're going to start seeing this stuff more and more. We are. Even if we didn't do this course, like we would still start to see this more and more.
Mhm.
Sam, are you
Yeah,
there?
yeah, I'm here. Yeah, yeah. Hello, everybody.
Brian, do you know Sam? He's a Carrot Corner celebrity.
No, I'm kind of new to the community. So how
Sam,
you
tell
doing?
tell Brian a bit about yourself.
Hi, Brian. My name's Sam. I live in London. I have a cat named Kingsley. I live with my partner. I like to play poker. Um, I also enjoy watching football, soccer, as you call it.
Cool.
What
Nice
about,
to
what
meet
about,
you.
what about yourself?
I'm a dog trainer. I have like a dog training business
Oh,
in
for sure.
Canada.
Oh,
Yeah, I really like dog training actually. Like I kind of went from poker to dog training, and I actually kind of, let's say, moved up the stakes, so to speak, really fast because I had a poker mindset, right? Like I was studying, I've been studying dogs since I got into it, and I think like a lot of people in my industry, like once they can do the basic stuff, they just work. They don't study.
Yep.
So I've kind of advanced quickly. So I kind of like it. And I always like kind of relate it to poker because I mean with dogs you have player types too, right? You have a really confident dog, you have an anxious dog, you have like an assertive dog, a low energy, high energy. So trying to figure out their player types. And
yeah.
yeah, it helps.
Awesome.
So yeah, I like it.
I do think it's a very good point. Like studying poker, learning poker, you do. I do all the time. I think about life EV all the time. I don't think of it like that, but I naturally, if a lot of the time when I'm in a situation, however bland or however serious, I do think I get to what I believe is the best decision to make pretty efficiently. Well, more efficiently since I've studied poker. Um,
Yeah. I
yeah.
mean, sometimes I feel like there's a negative, like, if let's say I have a friend and he wants to do something or hang out, I think like, is it like plus CV to spend time with him or whatever? And
Well, no,
that kind
I think
of
that's fair. Am I
yeah.
going to enjoy the time with him more than I am, say, doing something else? Uh,
hmm But I
yeah.
mean, I feel that some part of it is like, am I making my relationship transactional? And then that part I don't
Mm,
like thinking about it, like what value is he bringing me rather than like just, you know, enjoy the experience and see how it goes. I'm thinking of
yeah.
like, is it better than X thing? Like, I don't think that's fair for like, relationships.
I mean, I don't personally think of it in those words. Like, I won't think like, what value does this person give me? I don't know if you do, so I can't speak for you. But
Yeah, at times I've thought like that. So I kind of try to get my mind out of those kinds of thoughts. I don't think they're too healthy.
is that not like what everything comes down to anyway? Like, is that not why we make decisions?
Yeah, but let's say like hanging out with my family, like I
Mm.
don't think I should be thinking of like if it's plus EV or not. It's just kind of like what you should do.
Well, you make whatever happens, you make this is an interesting chat straight away. Whatever decision you end up making is because you believe it's the highest EV decision. This is something I mean, I'm using poker analogy there, but like this is something I've always believed anyway. With as human beings, whenever we have to make a decision, we always make the decision that we want, that we think is highest EV or that we think will benefit us the most.
hmm
Sometimes we're left with options that can only harm us or be negative, but we still believe we make certain choices because that's the best one overall. It might be, for example, like, oh, I've got a choice to hang out with my family or hang out with my friend. I'd rather hang out with my friend technically. I don't really want to hang out with my family, but I'm going to do that because I might get a load of shit from them or something. Like, even though you want to do that less, it's still technically like higher EV and better for you because you know in the long run it will cause you less grief, for example. And maybe you
hmm
can see your friend another time or whatever. But like, I think we just kind of I think poker helps us see, oh, right, that's what's going on underneath all these decisions. Um, yeah, I think it's important to like not dehumanize situations at all, but
Yep, I see what you're
mm,
saying. Yeah.
Right, so
don't beat
bringing this
yourself up
back
on
to that was a very interesting tangent and one of the weirdest two people meeting each other for the first time
them.
experiences I've seen. Bringing this back to turn play, then, just for the audience's sake, although I'm sure they enjoyed that. When we've gone small, we've talked about like big blind needing to do a ton of raise, and this is after range small. If they We've talked about the need to actually, if we are going to build a game plan that involves going very small on some boards and very big on others and going range small on some boards, then we do need to like learn the defense of that. It's a very neglected part of the game. But to bring this forward to the turn, then, if Big Blind calls here and you get a turn like an 8, which is, of course, a fantastic card for buttons range, you don't know that, you need to go take the card book skill. We remember that time, Sam, when I was obsessed with the
I
8 and
remember.
9 turn for like a good
hmm
2 weeks. Yeah.
hmm
Yep.
hmm
One of my
hmm
things, as you like to call them.
And then for your birthday, I bought you a load of like eights and nines.
Yeah, yeah, it was great. Yeah. Yeah. Put them on the cake, like lots of 8s and 9s on the cake.
Sorry, bro. All right, go on then.
So the solver's like first go to here is very big on a turn like this, which makes a ton of sense. And I like this too. I think like the idea now should probably be something like we made the pot really small. We left ranges really wide. Now we want to make the pot big, very big to compensate for that. Now this is a bit weird because like the deuces trips here, so it's a bit of a non-standard spot. But I think we probably want to build something that goes from very small to very, very big. in a spot like this to cause the most destruction and like have the most fun. That would be my initial reaction.
You would like some smaller bets on this turn?
No, I'd like just big
Oh,
bets,
okay.
like on this turn,
Okay.
like really big
Okay.
bets.
Yeah.
We were
Cool.
talking earlier about like some turns lending themselves to wanting to use like B50, other turns wanting to use like a B200 or B100 depending on the SPR.
Mhm.
So here we could actually play about with them, maybe not 228, but like the B200 for example. Everyone's using B150, right? It somehow became culturally accepted as the main overbet size, and humans are great at this, at like tacitly just deciding something and then like always doing that thing. Like when you play live and the table size is 4x, it takes no time at all before everyone is just 4xing and no one dares do anything different. We're like such conformists, right? So
Yeah.
B150 became the norm. Let's break that. Let's go B200 here. It's going to bring up our bet frequency a little bit,
It was funny. Just sorry, just to interject
right?
quickly. I played live last week, and I when my seat was called, it was for a brand new table, and I opened the first three hands coincidentally, and I opened to six, which is very small for live because most people go like 10 or 9 or 8 or whatever. And then as the next hand, after I had opened six three times, the next person to opened to six. And I was like, good, good, good.
Yeah,
This is what I wanted.
trend setting.
Yeah.
Okay, so what's surprising to us, unsurprising to us here then, if we look at our turn barrel strategy?
Well, for me to see this, to get right.
Yeah.
Right. What we got here? King X. Well, how thin are we going?
Yeah. Value threshold. For this sizing, we're going king, queen, or better.
But
I'm
it's not
surprised
betting ace king.
Not
it's
really.
a little bit. I'm
So,
surprised it isn't betting any ATEX at all, like singular
well, we've gone
ATEX.
2x pot, remember?
Yeah, but oh, sorry, it wasn't check check on the flop.
No, it was bet.
I understand. That was so minimal though.
Yeah, so very polarized strategy. What you can do, obviously, like you might think, like, oh, are we not missing value when we check all of that top pair? But what we're doing here is we're just playing a very high turn checking frequency. We're very often going to land on the river node where turn goes check check, and then we want to study the hell out of that. We basically want to identify throughout this process what lines does our toolkit make us face the most often, and then like we make sure we study those. That's something I need to bear in mind when building the course. But on the turn node, um, what's this pattern about? Well, ace king is not vulnerable. Like villain has a lot of ace high after you min bet the flop, and ace king is not vulnerable to the ace high and king queen is. So you could say that ace king just doesn't benefit as much from the fold equity as the king queen does.
Mhm. You say you don't really want to talk exploitatively
No, we can. I think it's cool to throw in the exploitative considerations here too. Yep.
because I think we could go thinner than what the sim is suggesting. In reality, you'd have to imagine they have less. I mean, they have little amount of trips anyway, really, but you'd have to imagine there are less than theory.
I mean, they are meant to almost pure raise a deuce, but I can imagine there's even less. Yeah. I mean, if you look at this, there's not much getting there
Mm,
anyway.
okay.
So I wouldn't think we can go thinner. I mean, when I overbet in general, I'm getting such a high fold that people have to be folding top pair, like based on how much they're folding. So if people are folding top pair, you can't really value bet too thin.
Yeah,
I think that makes sense. Yeah.
I think
It's the
people do fold
full
top pair.
dependent. Yeah.
Behind closed doors they do it, right? It's not like they're going to brag about it, but like there's definitely people that are just like, I know my hand's a catcher, I just don't want to do it.
Yeah, like I was looking at like turnover bets and I was getting like I don't know 77% folds and I node lock it. It's like I cannot find that many that many folds unless I start taking top pair.
Yep.
So
Yep.
yeah.
Especially if they've overfolded the flop as well, then they really have to be digging into the top pair in the turn because they land with less bad stuff.
Well, I mean, here they're not overfolding the flop. Like
Yeah,
where we're going one BB on the flop.
But that means they
Are they
have to
over?
defend a lot. Like they can only fold 25%. So if they fold on the flop with, let's say, like, look at this, like 10-8 offsuit with a club,
Mm.
they're overfolding,
Oh yeah.
right? So I think they
Yeah,
are. I
yeah, I
think they
guess.
probably
Yeah,
are
they
overfolding the
probably
flop.
are.
I
Yeah.
think they can
Yeah,
overfold
they
both
are.
streets. I don't think that's like a problem or a contradiction necessarily.
Yeah, I think that's probably happening.
So then at 2x pot on turn, this is their reaction. They're mixing like tens and nines if they even have that. They're calling all top pair. They're calling flush draws. Even the queen high flush draws. Wow, that's I can see that getting like turbo mucked by pool.
Hmm.
Yeah, I feel like this is being overfolded
Mm-hmm.
at first glance.
Yeah, and like
Yeah, because I mean, this is sorry. Go
no,
ahead.
go ahead, Brownsman.
Well, this is folding 70% here, and I mean, if I'm getting 77 for B150, I think probably getting more for B200. So.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I've found an MDA like in my sort of voyages into it that when you get to really big sizes, it's tempting to say, well, pool's gonna react the same way to B300 as B200. Sorry,
Rooper.
talk amongst yourselves.
Okay. Yeah, I think I mean, you're saying you're getting those overfolds from top pair and stuff, and I'm sure that's
Mhm.
true. Um, it depends. Like they may be like underfolding some stuff and overfolding other stuff. So like here we can see tens and nines, and I think jacks is pure calling here. Like I imagine they're overfolded.
Yeah.
But I guess here if all top pairs meant to call, like all it takes is like 1% and they're overfolding. What do you play on?
Um, I play on Poker Stars and GG.
Okay.
Right, guys, I'll be a minute. I'm gonna go get the shopping has arrived and Ruben's asleep, so
Okay.
my wife doesn't want to wake him. So I'll be 5 minutes getting that. You guys can just chat. Do you want to see a different node on the screen since you can't control it like before you do that, or?
Yeah, sure, why not?
Okay, so let's say
Ace.
they call and then Ace River. Ooh, juicy.
Yeah.
Sure.
Spicy Ace River. So you've got a smaller bet and you've got an all in, and the colors are very similar. Why are they that similar, man? But it's using both. All right, I'll be 5 minutes.
I mean, it makes sense that all
Hmm.
ace X is betting, given that their range is so king X heavy, and ace is basically the nuts now.
Yeah, I mean, but they're not check raising the turn with eights or deuce X. So I don't know. It feels kind of thin.
Um, I think if their range is like so king X heavy, I mean, yeah, sure. Like if they have a deuce, or I think the having a deuce or pocket eights is just too negligible for
Hmm.
an ace not to value bet. I don't know, yeah, because like you said, like the colors are like exactly the same. I don't know. I don't know if an ace is going all in or not.
Right.
Um, but I certainly would not. Uh, I certainly would definitely be um value betting like ace three or something like that.
Yeah, I mean, I guess if it's not the all-in size, but I
I mean,
also
some
wonder,
some
like,
might like.
yeah,
Oh no, there's no like ace jack or ace queen here. I mean, yeah. Sorry, go on.
I was just also wondering, if you're going B200, does it leave room to still like split your size on the river? Or now are you just so polar that you either have a shove or check?
Um, well, in theory, it's doing both, almost equal.
Yeah.
Are you talking about in reality?
Um, well, I mean, yeah, I guess I would be talking about reality because it's showing it's split, But yeah, I was just thinking like, especially just when you're going B200, you're now polarizing the range so much and your own that now if you're splitting your range on the river, it just kind of seems weird. But if it's doing it, then I guess you should.
Yeah, I think it makes sense to split your range. We so if they're overfolding turn to be 200, let's make that assumption.
Mhm.
They're going to arrive on the river with a range that's kind of too strong.
Right.
So that makes me want to bet an ace even more. Um, and we should bluff less
Hmm.
than the solver because we're getting less folds, I imagine. Um, it'd be so helpful to see how the sim
Which
splits.
one? Yeah, I
Yeah.
know. I mean, they're
Um,
definitely calling with a lot of king X. So, I mean, on the turn. So, I mean, I guess the question is, are they overfolding king X on the river versus like, I don't know. I don't know if that's what is that smaller size? B50? I
the pot is 64, is it? Yeah, yeah. So it's basically jam or B50.
yes, I mean, I guess it's pretty good. I mean, if you have whatever king jack, I don't think you're overfolding to B50 on the river. So, yeah, it's probably fine.
Yeah, I think one thing, yeah, I just think it's important for you not to think too much about monsters under the bed in terms of fear of being like slow played or something like that.
Yeah, I would like to see what is the most common size for the bluffs. Like, is it jamming, even if it doesn't have any like really good blockers? Like the seven
Uh,
five that's there. Like, is that a jam or is that the B50? I would wonder.
which one, sorry?
So, like, let's say the 7-5 suited there. Like, I wonder
Mhm.
if that's a B50 or the all-in size. And then, like, I would want to know like what's the average bluff size. Like I'm guessing the queen four is probably going to the all in more often than the 7-5.
Yeah, it will be the jams will be with hands that block their calls for that size. So I really wish we could see what their
Yeah,
calling
so it's
range was.
probably gonna be more of like the queen X and the jack X that would be going to the jamming, and more of the suited connectors. They're probably going more B50, I would guess.
Oh, the pot is 32.3, is it? Yeah, yeah, yeah. Oh, okay, yeah. So it's
Oh,
pot
it's pot or all
pot
in.
all in.
That's
Yeah,
okay.
I
So
need them
that's
both
even
really. It's either polarized or like
weirder.
mega polarized.
Yeah, now I'm even I have to rethink everything.
What stakes do you play then? You play on PokerStars and GG, right?
Uh, 100, like 50, 100, and 200.
Hmm.
Yeah.
You
What do you
play
play?
mainly Zoom or reg tables.
Um, mainly reg tables. I play on Canada site, so they don't have Zoom.
Oh, okay. Oh, you're in Canada. Nice.
Yeah.
Have I
Yeah.
seen you on YouTube?
No,
Oh.
I've never been. What stakes do you play?
I play like 500 and also 1K on
Okay.
like apps and stuff. I'm part of a CFP. I have like big study, well, not a big study group. I have a study group with people that play on sort of a number of sites like GG and
Are
also
you the coach of the CFP?
no, 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 no. I'm just
Okay.
a humble player.
Okay.
Um, yeah, so I see people play like a number of pools, like from anonymous sites to like GG, which is perceived to be very nitty.
Which one is Nitty? GG?
GG is pretty nitty, yeah, compared to other
Okay.
sites. That's like a more
Yeah.
of a red line site.
Hmm. Okay. Yeah, I mean, on the Canadian one, um, it's very good. I mean, it's pretty common to be like three fish to a table.
That's
So
amazing. It's
yeah,
great that you play reg tables.
yeah.
There's so many like one of the only people that I've ever spoken to that doesn't play Zoom. That says they play red tables.
Oh,
Probably because you
interesting.
want to
Yeah,
make
it's
money.
not, well, yeah, I want to make money, but also it's not really an option like on the Canadian
Yeah, that's
sites.
true. Yeah.
Yeah.
Fair enough. Would you play it if you could?
Yeah. It's addictive, right? Like
Yeah, it's crap, isn't it?
especially like, so I do have access to American sites, so or like global sites. So it is addictive, especially when I want to learn something. I could
Hmm.
learn it a lot faster in Rush.
Welcome back, Pete. You still out the
Hello.
washing, yeah? Not the washing, the
No,
shopping.
it was the shopping, mate. It's another one of my domestic chores. But yeah, makes me do it. Makes me.
Yeah.
So
Um,
Pete, can you answer like is
Oh
the
yeah.
pot 32 big blinds or
yes,
64?
32.
We need to
Okay, so
see their
it's only
reaction.
potting or shoving. That's weird
So the way it
distinction.
works is it has a built-in all-in automatically, like regardless at this SPR due to the settings of the sim, and then the AI chooses the sizing that it thinks is like quote unquote best, but honestly, like it's not going to be a huge deal for the other bet size. And that's different to the normal mode where like it will have like 6 bet sizes. This is like AI choosing one as it goes.
Mm.
This happened because Ruse Solver was almost a thing. My friend Jared Jalderman, and Kevin Rabichow were building this, and then they ended up like liaising with Wizard and giving them the technology or selling them the technology to the AI bet size selector part. I tend to like just take its bet size that it suggests and change it to like what my toolkit's going to be. But that's why this is what it is. So what were we
Yeah,
thinking
because
about? Mm,
we were discussing it as like I thought the pot was 64, so I thought it was B50.
mm,
So that kind of changed my thought process now that it's B100.
mm-hmm. Yeah.
But yeah, I was deciding like, is it actually like too thin to jam like ace seven or yeah, on the river?
Yeah,
But
it's so hard to tell what it's doing. What shade is that? Like why are the colors what they are here? It's terrible. They're the same color.
They're
mhm.
exactly the same color. It's really annoying.
I don't know why it's like that. I selected the Pio mode, but it must be a bug. I wonder if I can just change the mode here. Um,
Is it counting B100 as like technically an overbet?
yeah, that's exactly what it's doing. Yeah, so if I change that
Disgusting.
to like 90, 87, like who cares, right? It's gonna be at least give us some. Okay, now at least we have like some
Okay, there
vaguely
we go.
different shades.
So yeah, you're just like almost potting all the A6,
Yeah.
which I really like.
And I don't think this is thin at all because the deuce is such an innocuous paired card that like they're just not gonna have a lot of trips here.
Hmm.
Oh,
And
I don't know why I was even thinking like ace. Does the kicker play? Or is it like the king high
not really.
kicker? Yeah, so yeah, I guess it doesn't matter. Okay.
Yeah. Yep. Any ace is
And I
just
was
like
wondering also like what is the sizing of the bluffs? Like is like the queen and jack doing the overbet and the suited connectors doing the smaller, or is it the same sizing for all bluffs?
I find
Well,
these questions really like almost like
Not important.
not important, but also there's never a clear pattern with blockers unless it's like a a flush completing or straight completing river or something like that. There tends to be just kind of scattered all over the place a lot of the time.
Hmm.
what's the calling range looking like to jam? Well, to both.
So to jam, we are calling like 2 pair combos mostly and boats
Yeah. Okay, that's why the Queen X because it's calling like higher King X.
occasionally.
That's kind of calling a bit of everything, isn't it?
Yeah, yeah. What do we call that in grade 3? Like a heterogeneous calling range.
Well, I guess all king X has an ace kicker, so it doesn't really matter.
Yeah, I don't think it would matter anyway because they would all be bluff catchers regardless, right? The only thing that
Yeah.
matters is removal, and our ace X doesn't matter. So therefore, the king X kicker doesn't matter by proxy, and it's just like mixing everything. Yeah, so you can see why these spots get overfolded it, and it's probably like maybe not this spot because they have this newly made nut region that they're just meant to call with on the river. But if they don't have that and they don't just make 2 pair on the river, you can see how it's going to get really difficult because you have to call down with 1 pair. Like if we change this to like a 5 or something, like 5 of spades. Now it's playing like the overbet again, so just stop it from doing that. I don't want a B150 and a B261. Like, come on. Give it a slightly smaller one. Then we go all in. Oh, it's just had all that 2 pair from turn. Sorry, that's not on river. That was on turn. Yeah, so it's interesting, right? Like, because with B200 at the turn, they start slow playing all of their 2 pair combos against that because it's hyperpolar. And then they have plenty of 2 pair as a percentage of range to call on river. They're just kind of meant to fold out all of their 1 pair when we jam in that spot.
Yeah, so they're essentially just calling king 8 plus.
Yeah.
Pathetic.
Ace 8 is interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it's all against jam, it's all like catchers. I mean, we're looking at a very weird part of the game tree now, but I guess the lesson is like this node, they should be very uncapped on this node. Now, what they're going to do wrong at low stakes here is that they're going to probably raise off. Let's go full hungry horse. They're going to raise off their 2 pair on the turn at too high of a frequency. That's going to leave them pretty screwed on the river. Even against 2x pot, they're still going to over raise 2 pair because they're going to raise it at some clip. Ace 8's still 2 pair because oh, sorry, Ace 8's not 2 pair now. Yeah, very good point. King 8 is 2 pair. Ace 8 is not 2 pair. I can't see the board. That's why I'm getting like all kinds of confused because the board is like over there and I just keep forgetting what it is. Yeah, Ace 8's just like Blockerville. I guess. The 8's just a very good card against the jam range.
Makes sense.
Okay, cool. Let's pick a non-paired flop then. What's another small bet flop, guys, to finish on for today?
Queen 70s.
I looked at that earlier and I think you can actually go huge on that too. Because you still have
Ace 7 deuce.
Yeah, that's ace high still. But yeah, ace 7 deuce for sure. Okay, let's work with ace 7 deuce two tone. And let's go kind of min. 1 big blind bet. So basically what we're probably going to be gearing towards in the course is like trees that follow 1 big blind and trees that follow 2x pot on flop, something like that. And we're going to be going range here. 70-30 is definitely something we're going to turn into range. Because we don't want to study a check back node 30% of the time that we really don't have to study. And let's pick a turn.
Should we complete the flush draw? Or you want something that we can bet 200 on? Be 200
No,
on?
I think it's good to look at both. So let's complete the flush draw. And then because we're completing the flush draw, we're going to be going for B50. Because, you know, people don't B50 the turn. This is the sideline. This is going to be the strat. And I think this is going to be one that takes a lot of study to perfect. Because if I just hover over like Queen 6 of clubs, probably 95% of the chat's surprised at this point in time.
Yeah, I mean, that's very difficult to find.
Well, let's dig into the psychology and the theory then. Why is it a thing and why is it hard to realize it's a thing?
It's hard to realize it's a thing because it's basically almost a zero equity bluff. Aesthetically, people for betting with flush draws
Mhm.
or at least a gut shot.
So they compare the experience of betting with nothing to the experience of betting with something and use that as a way of making a decision. My old analogy for that was like, um, you go to, I don't know, you go on holiday and you're staying in a hotel in the middle of nowhere and you go for dinner in the only restaurant in the hotel and it's only serving a few things and you're like, I'm not going to eat because I'd rather have the experience of eating at like that fine restaurant back home. That doesn't make sense, right? You just eat the best thing in the menu that you can eat at that point. So like when
Yeah.
you have let's say queen six of clubs there in that spot, you are in a shit restaurant and you have to eat something or you're going to go hungry, and so you're just going to order the thing that you want the most. And in equilibrium, that's always indifferent, like bet and check are the same EV, but you have to do the best thing for the hand, not think about the hands that you don't have. Now, there are times when you do have standards, like out of position, especially, you're at fold equity deficit and you need to have more going on in equilibrium to bet, but here you don't because it's still a relatively high EV spot for you. You have 3.35 chips of the pot and big blind has 2.77. What about other spades? Like what if it's like a four of spades or something?
A small of spades.
A small of spades.
Not too dissimilar.
EV's a bit closer though, right? You have less of an EV edge. But it's still the case that the queen six is betting sometimes.
I mean, literally everything is betting pretty much, apart from showdown value.
You
Am I
really
right?
have to try very hard to find a low equity hand that can't bet. Like once you get a really
Yeah.
bad blocker like the nine, it starts to like stop betting it.
Mm-hmm.
But that's really the only thing. So again, this just comes back to like what turn barreling always comes back to, which is like, yes, you bet the high equity stuff, but you also bet the low equity stuff that unblocks folds and has like some sliver going on. And as long as your card is like lower, you're gonna unblock folds because villain raises a lot of the low cards on flop or folds them. Whereas villain has a lot of like medium card that calls and then folds. It's just a very common pattern across loads of textures, worth learning.
Yeah. And we're only going B50.
Yeah, yeah, and that's going to place a requirement on him to raise sometimes. Okay, not very often on this card actually.
Wow.
Wow, that's surprising, isn't it?
Yeah.
Do you think the population would raise more than this?
Absolutely,
Yes.
because they're going to raise their flushes. They're going to raise off their good hands.
Mhm. So then, does that
Um,
make it better for us or worse for us?
it makes it better for our hands that cooler them for starters. It will make it worse for. There'll be some hands that would do better at realizing. Like I imagine, like a hand like 6-5 of whatever non spades. I imagine that would benefit more from checking back if they're over raising. Like we get into danger zone. There'd be some danger zone hands, right? Is what
Mhm.
I'm getting at.
Hmm.
I guess it's not too big of a deal, especially since we're bluffing a lot of kind of like no equity hands.
Yeah, I think at this SPR, like we probably don't have many danger zone hands because like the bad spades we have are dead to their value range a lot of the time. The nothing doesn't care.
Hmm.
I think danger zone's more of a problem at like SPR 1.8 in a 3-bet pot when you're betting like an open ender and villains incentivized to jam out position with top pair and stuff like that. Here I'm not so worried, but yeah, I think it's to answer Brian's to have a go at Brian's question myself. I think it's good for us bluffing on the node where they call the turn. Like our river bluffs are going to be more successful now, especially after half pot. Like the more you get them to raise too frequently, with their good stuff in particular, the better it is for you to bluff later. So that's something that's jumping out at me. And then it's obviously the case that when you have a really good hand on the turn and you get raised by them when they have a flush, I think you just make more money. So like when you have the nut flush, for example, it's good for you that they're raising the queen high flush. So it feels like it's mainly good for us across the board as long as we know how to react to it.
Okay.
I think the thing you can say about any deviation is, like, if you were to ask, like, is it good for me that the computer started playing more rock? The answer is, like, it's not good or bad for you a priori, like if you don't change your strategy, but it's good for you if you then know that you need to play more paper. So for any deviation they make away from equilibrium, if you know what it is, and you know the counter, then it's necessarily good for you relative to them playing an equilibrium strategy. Some are more prosperous than others for you. Some give you better opportunities than others, but they're all good for you by some magnitude.
Right.
But only if you know what to do. Some of our opponent's deviations are bad for us because we're reacting in the opposite way. So, for example, when you're against the fish and you check back the flop with some bad hand and they lead the turn and you like fold a hand that should be a call to a B33, they might be deviating towards like a mindless turn probe because you checked and you're accidentally making it good because you don't know that your hand is a defend in equilibrium and you don't find the defend against the overbluff node. So sometimes we reward our opponent's deviations unintentionally. Right, let me just deal with chat before we begin to bring this to a close. We're just doing research at the moment, guys. That's what the Carrot Lab's about. We're nowhere near making this course yet. We're just gearing up at the moment. So Jari Repo said it's so stupid that people go and play in high rake environments. What can you do? Everyone goes there. Yeah, it is really hard because as games die on other sites where rake is a bit lower, the game gets tougher and your win rate goes down. So you end up playing the equivalent of a high rate game in win rate anyway by virtue of the fact that the fish are gone. That's what happened to PokerStars. Like they had lower rake, they had good software, but all the fish left and all the fish went to GG. And then the games became unbeatable for all but the very best regs. And then regs left as well, and then the games died, and then 500 Zoom no longer run. 200 became 500, and then 100 became 200, and then people left. So that's how a site dies. We have a player who's won 289k on the pool at our live club, 3 national titles in second place, crushing, and one player means he is not good because he doesn't win at the local club. I mean, I don't know, it depends on the sample size, but like in tournaments and if it's second goes and stuff like that, you can just go on streaks for like so long. Streaks are a real thing. You were talking about the variance, which is pretty crazy on some local tournaments at club, even if you're insanely good. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. This course is definitely the next evolution in the game, says Struans. Even Celo Costa said last year, it's necessary to take your opponent out of this game, but hasn't created anything. You're ahead of the curve. Well, let's get fucking moving then, shall we? Let's get moving. Hope Celo isn't watching this. He's not doing his market research. There's nothing to see here, Celo. Go away and look at the MDA instead. It's much better. Much better. He might be, yeah. I'm thankful for Pete bringing it back to the content. The personal stories were going wildly off. Well, at least we didn't get cancelled while I was away. That's something. If I was you, I'd reach out to Run It once and sell this through them. They would take a massive cut. That's the thing. Like, I get it. I did that before. I don't know what if I could negotiate anything that would. No, I mean, I'd rather do it for Carrot Corner. At this point, my blood is orange. I don't think I could do it. I love the company too much now. What's the course? The course is basically the Carrot strategy. An inventory of weird and unseen lines that are fine that you can build and master and learn and wield against everyone to take them out of their comfort zone and have a lot of fun. And be ahead of the curve when everyone like starts using MDA and they're all battling each other and the meta's going in a certain way, but you're still doing something weird that people haven't seen, that there's no data on, that there's no theory, that people have studied on, that there are no other courses on. That's what we're trying to do. Okay, Brian, thank you for coming on, man. That was unexpected, but a very nice surprise. It'd be great to have you on again. I can tell you're getting like involved in the community, and you know, eventually there'll be, if you do keep being active, you could become a sensei on our Discord one day. So something to think about.
Cool. All right. Take care.
Take it easy, man. And Sam, thank you as always. Always a pleasure, mate. Of course. Have you not got to guess the thing? Did I just do that? I didn't mean to do that.
You want to do that? You did do that.
YouTube, that was an accident. Have you? I mean,
Actually.
You don't have a guess my thing, right? Next time you come on, you need to have a guess. I don't even have time today, so we're not doing it today. But next time, like, bring a thing with you.
I've got a really good idea for one.
Excellent. All right. See you later, guys. Thanks for watching. Remember, tomorrow, 9 o'clock till 11, we are doing the carrot